way to the region of Tyre and Sidon, and he entered a house and did not want anyone to know. Yet he could not be hidden. And immediately a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him, and came and fell down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile, a Syrophoenician by birth, and she begged him to cast a demon out of her daughter. And he said to her, Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs. But she answered him, Yes, Lord. Yet even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. And he said to her, For this statement you may go your way. The demon has left your daughter. And she went home and found the child lying in bed, and the demon was gone. All right. So, after Jesus lays the groundwork for what defiles a person and doesn't defile the person, he went on down the road. He ends up in Tyre and Sidon. That's where he goes, and he enters a house there. And he tried to make himself as invisible as possible, but he could not. He didn't really want people to know he was there, but sure enough, they found out he was there. Right when Jesus goes somewhere, people know. They be texting each other, Snapchatting that stuff, and they know, right? So then he's here and he's in this house. We don't know whose house it is, but then we got this new character that approaches. She's a woman, and a Syrophoenician woman. So just in case you're wondering, I don't know if y'all wonder about Syrophoenicians, but a Syrophoenician this is a name from the Roman era when it was Roman occupied. The Phoenicia region had Syria in it. Syria, not Assyria. But so this would have been a person from Syria in the Phoenician region. Syro-Phoenician. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, Jesus is in a strange place talking to this strange woman. And it's a kind of weird conversation. And you could say, well, it seems like a harsh way for Jesus to interact with someone. Because what he says when she says, hey, if you don't mind, my daughter she's in Matthew says, she's severely oppressed with an unclean spirit. If you could, would you cast that out? And Jesus' response is kind of strange. Most people would think it's strange. He says, well, it's not good for me to take the bread from the children and throw it to the dogs. All right. So the children would be the Israelites because he was sent to the Israelites. In fact, if you read this same thing in Matthew's testimony, he first starts off with saying, I'm only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. That's what he says. I'm only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. And then he goes on and he says, it's not right for me to take the bread from the children and throw it to the dogs. All right, so we understand and know that the children are the Israelites and the dogs are the Gentiles. That's what he's saying in here. Now, I don't know if she was offended or not. It's not my place to know. I don't know if you're offended or not. It's just the terminology that Jesus used. He wasn't being mean. He was just stating facts, and he was very to the point kind of guy most of the time. So, he says this to the woman. But the weird thing is this. Can you remember the last time Jesus went ministering outside of Israel? Because he's talking to a Syrophoenician woman. Y'all know where in Israel Tyre and Sidon are? They're in Phoenicia. They're not in Israel. I know it's a trick question. Brother Jeremy like that sometimes. He's not even in Israel. All right, so here's the weirdest thing. He's outside of Israel talking to a non-Israelite. This person asks him for help. And he responds by saying, it's not my job. It's not my job, it's not my time, it's not my place to help you. I'm not obligated to help you, is what he said to her. I have no obligation to help you. Then that would bring up the question, then what is he doing there? Why'd you leave Israel if you had no business ministering and no desire to minister to anyone outside of Israel? Why'd you leave Israel to go be mean to Gentiles? Right? I'm not saying you're asking that. I'm saying it's a question that could be asked. But there's always a good reason for Jesus doing anything that Jesus does. So he's not in Israel. He's in Tyre and Sidon, which is in Phoenicia, the region of Phoenicia. So that's where he's at. And this Syrophoenician woman says, hey, my daughter has a demon. She's possessed by an unclean spirit. And I'm just seeing, can you do something about that? And he says, I mean, obviously he can, but he says, no, I'm not gonna, because I'm not gonna take the work that I'm doing for the children of God, for Israel, and then throw it to the dogs. But then the woman, she's adamant about it. And she goes on to say, yes, Lord, I'm not arguing that. I'm not opposed to what you're saying. But even the dogs, she says, eats the crumbs from the children's table. Now that's quite a statement. That's quite a statement. Because what she's saying to Jesus, and y'all know I like to expound on things. We take so many small interactions in Scripture. They're small interactions, but they're significant. And if they weren't significant, they wouldn't even be recorded here. So this is a short interaction that's recorded. This narrative is very small. And naturally, Jesus goes ahead and helps her out. But here's what she says to Jesus. She says, listen, I know and understand that your mission may be to Israel. I get that. I'm not saying that I'm better than them or anything like that. I'm not coming at you with that. All I'm saying is, from what I've heard and the testimony I've heard, the things that I believe, the things that I think, what my conclusions have led me to believe is that whatever leftovers you have are sufficient for all the rest of the world. That's where she's at. I believe that whatever falls from their table, whatever they don't use, is sufficient for the rest of us. That's a powerful statement, what she says. So much so that Jesus says, whoo. Probably gave him one of those, whoo. I don't know if he ever did that. I do that though. But he was like, man, all right. Let's take it back to the text. Verse 29. So he said to her, for this statement, you can go your way. From this hour, your daughter's healed. Man. Now, this isn't a recipe for anything. It's a narrative. I've said that so many times as we've gone through the book of Mark. It's a narrative. All it does is it captures an interaction between Jesus and this Syrophoenician woman. But it's a wonderful thing, and it's very pivotal in the fact that it shows Jesus doing miracles for Gentiles. Because later on, if anyone would ever try to say, well, Jesus didn't ever do anything for anyone outside of Israel, no, you're wrong, he did. Now, ratio-wise, it's wild from what he did for the Gentiles and what he did for the Israelites, but that's irrelevant. What he did was shown that he had power outside of Israel. It wasn't regional. It wasn't specific to a people, a group, or an area. He had power anywhere, everywhere, over anyone and anything. And he shows us that. And he healed that woman's daughter simply because she had a faith that understood his sufficiency. Now, I'm not even talking about the healing part. I'm talking about the sufficiency of Christ right now for everyone's sin. So after he came to Israel, after he did all that he's done there and showed that he was the Son of God with the power to forgive sins, he also shows us through this passage that even what fell from that is sufficient for forgiveness of sins. That's something I enjoy. That's something that you and I should really enjoy. Because I don't think that I'm Jewish. I believe that I'm Gentile-ish. And I like the fact that Christ's sufficiency is good enough for us Gentiles. I love that. But we don't all have the same idea as this woman. And sometimes we think maybe we got to supplement some of this Jesus stuff. I don't know. But we don't. He's sufficient. 100% sufficient. This was Jesus and the Syrophoenician woman. want to move on down a little bit. It says this. And then he returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. This is back in that Gennesaret area. Jesus left Gennesaret. He went to Tyre and Sidon, met the Syrophoenician woman, left there after that, and went back to Gennesaret. Almost makes you think he left Gennesaret to go to Tyre and Sidon for this woman and her daughter, and then came on back. Almost makes you think that. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that's not in here, so I don't know. But looks like he was intentional about being with the Gentiles and doing a work for them. So he's back now in Gennesaret area, that region. And it says, I'm in 32, and they brought to him a man who was deaf and had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hands on the man. And taking him aside from the crowd privately, he put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, touched his tongue. And looking up to heaven, he sighed and he said to him, pay attention, crazy word, Ephphatha. Ephphatha, not alfalfa. Alfalfa. And that is, be opened. And his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. And Jesus charged them to tell no one, but the more he charged them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, he has done all things well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute to speak. All right. So, one thing that's cool about Jesus is every miracle he did was the first time the miracle was did until it was done. Right? So, like, when Jesus started preaching, people didn't know, like, I could just bring this kind of person, he'll heal him. Till at some point they seen him heal him, right? Until some point it happened. Well, do you remember when the last time Jesus made a deaf man hear? It's the first time. It's the first time. Now, there was a guy oppressed earlier. You wouldn't find it here, but earlier chronologically, if you were in the book of Matthew, where he made a man who was oppressed by an unclean spirit speak. This guy couldn't really speak well, and he couldn't hear. Probably couldn't speak well because he couldn't hear. But anyways, this is the first time we see this. So he's back in the Decapolis area, and they say, well, this guy's deaf. He hadn't healed any deaf people, but has he done some things? Yeah, he's done some things. Now, the things that he did sometime with his disciple, not all the people seen Jesus walking on water. Not all the people seen Jesus tell the storms and the seas to calm down, chill out, and then watch them calm down and chill out. You see, that was some things that the disciples seen that nobody else seen. But the other people seen a lot of miracles involving other healing. But they hadn't seen him heal any deaf person before. And so, these people, cool people, they say, I got this deaf guy. I'm going to bring him to Jesus. They don't know if it's going to work. They bring him to Jesus. They bring him over there, and Jesus does weird. He just does weird. I don't know, you might think I'm being weird, but this is a weird thing that he does. They bring the guy, and he doesn't do this in front of everybody. He brings the guy off privately. And he puts his fingers in the guy's ears. That's weird. I'm not picking on Jesus, man. I'm just saying it's a weird thing. If I go up to Brother Ed and I just boop, then I spit and pinch his tongue, it's weird. All right? Don't matter. Don't matter if we think something's weird sometimes. But that's what Jesus did. Put his fingers in his ears, he spit, and he touched the guy's tongue. Then he says, be opened. I'm not going to say it in their manner again because I'm going to say something wrong. So he says, be opened. And just like that, the guy hears and the guy speaks. Again, this is another narrative. So he says to the guy and everybody who came with him, he says, listen, I don't want you, don't go telling anybody anything. And you always wonder, because he does this a good bit. You always wonder, why is he telling to not say anything. And then they go and they say a lot of things. And so a lot of times I wonder, like, why'd they record it? Like, why'd they record that? Why'd the disciples, the gospel authors, why'd they write down, Jesus told them not to say anything, but they just kept saying anything? And then Jesus was like more zealously saying, stop. And they were more zealously like, check it out. I believe it's there. I can't speak this as Bible doctrine. I mean, it's a narrative. I believe it's there to show us that when Jesus does something in our lives that we believe was something only Jesus could do, I believe it's here to show us that no one could really stop us from saying something. No one could stop us from talking about it. So when people ask me anything about my relationship with Jesus, what do you think I'm talking about? What do you think I say to them? Do you think I tell them of all the promotions I get at jobs, raises? Do you think I say that? Do you think I say, oh man, the best thing about my Christianity is that, God makes sure that my career keeps on progressing, opens doors like that? I don't say anything like that, because do only Christians get raises and promotions? No. All of the world gets that. So can I reduce that to just that? No. Can I thank God for the things He does in my life? Absolutely. But that's not where we're going in the conversation. Talking about the things that Christ alone has done for me, that I could isolate to Christ alone. So do you think that I tell people, well, because of my Jesus, look at my family. There's my family. That's why I'm so grateful for Jesus, because look at my family. You think I say that? No, because people have families. Don't need to be a Christian to have a family. I don't need Jesus and God in my life to have a family. Is it better? Everything's better with God. Right? But that's not what I say. So, this man, I wasn't deaf. There was a long time, 26 years of my life, when I couldn't hear God speak. But I wasn't deaf. I was able to speak. I didn't have leprosy. He didn't heal me from a lot of the things that He healed these people from. I didn't have a legion of unclean spirits in me. I didn't have that stuff. I didn't deal with that stuff. No. When people ask me about Jesus, though, out in the real world out there, not inside of these four walls of safety, Bible, Jesus talking, out there in the world, when they ask me about my relationship with Jesus, it centers on one thing, and one thing that only Jesus could do. Sin. Sin. That's it. That's, no matter where you want to go with the conversation, I'm bringing it back to sin. Because that's what Jesus forgave in me that no one else could forgive in me. That's what Jesus redeemed me from that no one else can redeem me from. And it doesn't matter to me what you think about Jesus, where you want to go with a Jesus conversation. I'm going to keep on bringing it back to sin until we've all acknowledged in this conversation that the only person who could free a person from sin is Jesus. That's it. See, that's what I want to talk about. People want to talk about a lot of stuff about Jesus, and I'm fine with that. First, I want to get past what only Jesus could do. So every time I'm in Scripture and I see Him saying, hey, listen, don't go tell people that I made you be able to hear. And they go tell people that, hey, He's able to hear. That's what I think about. Because it takes me back even to the burial when those guards that were set with the seal of the high priest to make sure nobody came and robbed that grave and said Jesus rose from the grave. Those guys, when they left that grave and they went back and they talked to the priest, the priest gave them a bag of money and they said, don't say a word. And they didn't. They didn't. I think about that. I think about that every time I think about this. Those two live together for me. And they live together because I know that there's something in this world that can stop me from speaking about Jesus. And there's something in this world that can never stop me from speaking about Jesus. like those guards, if I'm looking for any sort of self-gain, then when I think it detrimental, I won't talk about Jesus. Yeah. But when there's only Jesus to be glorified, you'll tell. That's what I see from it. Now again, this is just a narrative. All it is another recording of another interaction. That's it. No recipe for anything. But I'm always looking for something in these narratives and these testimonies that I could take with me. And so whenever I let that live inside me and I walk outside of this place and I'm walking anywhere in the world and we're talking and we're having a conversation and when we talk, if you bring up Bible, anything like that, this is where I'm going. It's where I'm going because it's what I love to talk about. And it's because only Jesus could do it. Who else you think was out there healing deaf people? That guy probably went to some healers, some doctors, some somethings. Sure, somebody poured something in his ear, did some gree-gree. I don't know. Tried something. Nobody could do it. Jesus did it. That deaf man wouldn't shut up about what only Jesus could do. That's the bottom line. About what only Jesus could do. Yeah. So, what do you say to people? That's my question. What do you say to people? I ain't fussing at you. I ain't saying you better be out there saying stuff to people. No. I tell you all the time. If you can't confidently talk about your faith, I don't want you to talk about it. You're going to sound silly out there. I don't want you to just never do anything. I want you to increase your faith and learn how to articulate what it is that you believe. For you and for the rest of the people. That's what I want, but hey, do what you got to do, right? But I remember because July 2026, I said to Jesus, my life for your blood. That's what I said. My life for your blood. That's the deal. That's the covenant I walked into. My life for your blood. No one else could do for me what he did for me. No one else could save me from my sin. No one else can deliver me from death to life. No one else could do that. No one else can do that. From that day to this day, it has not diminished in me the significance of what he's done. And so from that day to this day, my conversation hasn't changed when we're talking about Jesus. It's all about sin. He delivered me from it. He saved me from it. He forgave me of it. So I tell people that. So what do you tell people? Like in the conversation. I'm just asking, just for you to know. What do you tell people? What's stuff about Jesus? What's the most important thing to you about Jesus? Most important thing to that deaf man was, now I could hear. I feel like whatever's most important to us about Jesus is what we tell people. I'm not telling you that you're right or wrong. I'm just saying what's most important to us in that is usually what we tell people. So I would encourage you to figure out what's most important to you with Jesus. What is it that really gets you going? What you passionate about with Jesus? Talk to people about what you're passionate about with Jesus. It's a good starting place. Let's pray this morning. Father, we